We've got former Labor Minister Stephen Conroy on the line. How are you, Stephen?
Good to be with you, Chris. It's great to be able to walk the streets of Melbourne without a face mask on.
I bet it is. You know, when you think about how gradually you've come to getting back to a new normal, it's come just at the right time. I don't think Victorians could have gone through a Christmas in the state it was in, say, a month ago.
Look, I think that's dead right. The tensions and the frustrations were really building up, partially because of the success as we brought it down from 700 a day to now 0 for almost a month. But, you know, Melburnians could see that the strategy was working and they wanted it to work, but it was getting really tough there towards the end. And, yeah, look, you've got to give the Premier credit for all the criticism that he's undertook. He can now turn around and go, scoreboard.
Yeah, he picked his act up, but only after he dropped the ball on hotel quarantine. You can't take that away from him.
There's no question that mistakes were made, and the Premier has acknowledged that mistakes were made. The inquiry, I'm sure, is going to be very uncomfortable reading when it comes out next month, and we'll wait to see what the actual findings are before, you know, we can all give commentary on it. But there is no question, and the Premier has not tried to hide from the fact that mistakes were made and that people have to be held to account. That's why he put the inquiry in place.
Well, it starts again on December 7, so fingers crossed he's been able to get it right in hotel quarantine. Some fascinating developments today, Stephen Conroy, to this proposal by Qantas for people to get a vaccination passport, possibly on an app, to prove they're free of the virus before boarding Qantas flights. It is a return to the past, but for a lot of young people, they would not expect this. They have reacted today on Talkback Radio and in particular social media with a degree of protest, and that's understandable originally.
Well, look, Australians under the age of 30 probably have never experienced what you and I and many, many other Australians have experienced: regular shots to go to many places, restrictions by other countries about what you can do and where you can go and what you've got to be vaccinated for. So I think Qantas are well within their rights to say that we want to provide a safe workplace for our staff, for the airports. We don't want to see people come that haven't been cleared. I mean, what we're going to moving towards is that people will be coming and they're not necessarily going to be able to be COVID-free in the first instances. So there's going to be circumstances which are unable to be controlled by any government, any state or federal jurisdiction. We're going to do our absolute best, but you've seen what's happened in South Australia in the last few days. You've seen what's happened even in New Zealand, where people, there's leaking out from the quarantine, and they're an island like us. So you can't give an absolute guarantee. So we need to keep up all the hard work. We don't want to see there being, slipping out of quarantine. And if that means Australians who want to travel overseas, and there's many Australians who want to get back overseas to see friends and family, there are overseas as well, legitimate situations, as well as the business community needs to restart all of the deals that have been sitting waiting to be ticked off, notwithstanding the video conferencing. A lot of business relationships require personal rapport and trust, and that is always a premium. So I know that this is something that they may not be accustomed to, but they're going to have to suck it up if they want to get on a Qantas flight, and it'll be interesting to see whether the other airlines follow suit.
I think they might. We've got Cory Bernardi. The Adelaide Eagle has landed. A technician you're not, Cory Bernardi. Don't try to be.
I was so good at this last week. I don't know what's happened. Maybe COVID's got to me, Chris.
Yes, it is. It probably is. I want to talk about some of what we've heard from New South Wales in terms of hotel quarantine. 169 sacked security guards, 4 escapees. It's a wonder that New South Wales didn't have their second wave. This is not an easy thing to do, is it?
No, it's not an easy thing to do, Chris. And so we understand mistakes are going to happen. But the consequences of these mistakes are catastrophic because they do react exactly as Stephen Marshall did here in South Australia and shut down the whole state to the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars. at least in New South Wales. And whatever flaws or fights that Gladys is having over there, she is being sensible about coronavirus and COVID and how to manage it. And let me just put this in perspective, Chris. The global coronavirus cases are estimated by the World Health Organization at something like 750 million. And we've had just over 1 million deaths. It works out the death rate is about 0.13%, which is just a little bit higher than the flu. And yet we are devastating.
But we would not have had those. But Cory, I keep hearing this, but we would not have had those numbers. And if you want to classify them as small, let's call them small, we would not have had those small numbers if we hadn't have locked down strategically in many areas of the world, including Australia.
Well, no, well, Chris, I can actually debate that point because in the end, there are hundreds of millions of people that haven't been diagnosed with coronavirus, but that have it. And we also know that there is a cost, there is a massive cost to lockdowns. And the World Health Organization has also said they don't really work particularly well. Yeah. We also know that the coronavirus seems to have cured the world of influenza. It seems to have cured the world of influenza because no one's dying of that anymore. The statistics attached to this are being manipulated.
I understand the cost economically, but if you pull people apart, that is, don't allow them to be together, that is, lock them down, you do accrue benefits in terms of passing on a virus.
I mean, who is this lunatic World Health official?
Like everything else.
I understand the cost.
Like everything else, there is a cost-benefit analysis that goes on with these things.
OK, let's move on. There are a couple of other things happening.
Stephen Conroy's hero. I want to channel Stephen Conroy's hero, Graham Richardson, who said, we are completely, and I'll paraphrase here, overreacting to this. You can live with it. You've got to learn to live with it. You've got to manage it. And I think this is just being used as an excuse to really inflict extraordinarily powers on governments.
OK, Stephen Conroy, the Queensland Border opened to New South Wales people, or should I say the greater metropolitan area today, and will open to Victorians depending on the numbers tomorrow morning. But today we've had 39 suburbs in the southwest of New South Wales on alert because wastewater analysis has proven that there's still COVID virus in that part of Sydney. I can only hesitate or suggest that people should hesitate and don't book flights to Queensland just yet because we don't know how long they're going to keep the border open.
Look, we've just had a similar, on a smaller scale, scare in suburbs literally 5 minutes away from me. And people were asked to go out and get tested. And so far, as you can see from the results in Victoria, we haven't found anyone who's got it. So those tests aren't 100% perfect. But you've got to take notice. You've got to ask people to go and be tested so that you ensure we don't have leakage. Because as these borders open, the risk of cross-state transmission will, by definition, increase. And you've got to keep doing all of those things. I mean, for Cory to suggest, and that World Health Organization person to suggest that lockdowns don't work, I mean, maybe they haven't noticed New Zealand and Australia because they have worked. They have comprehensively worked. It is unarguable, even if your name is Cory.
Let's not go back on that. But Cory, can I ask you about Queensland? You've got to be prepared to live with the cluster and deal with it, not shut down your borders when a cluster occurs in another state. I hope Queensland understand that, but I fear that they're all trying to get elimination.
I guess, Chris, this is my point, that we have to learn to live with this, that there are always going to be episodic breakouts, and you've got to learn and understand how to control them. Because at the moment, how would you plan to go to Queensland, and you could go up there and they could close the border, or South Australia could close the border at the drop of a hat, and you might spend 2 weeks in quarantine?
Yeah.
I mean, just last week I had someone fly to meet me here from Western Australia for a business meeting. He landed. I said, mate, you better head home because you're not going to be able to get in. He went back to WA and had to spend 2 weeks in quarantine because he happened to be in South Australia for about half
Listen,
an hour.
I've only got 1 minute left. I want to ask you,
madness.
Are we seeing the first signs of Trump conceding, Stephen Conroy?
Look, I think so. The fact that he's pretending that he authorised the GSA official, I think, to begin the transition indicates that as each and every one of his legal strategies. I think he's batting 1 for 39 legal challenges. So I think, yes, even in his bubble of a world, the truth is dawning on him. He lost.
Okay. Cory, will they have to blast him out, or will he eventually go cordially?
I think he'll go cordially in the end. He's taking baby steps in that direction, notwithstanding the fact that he does have legal remedies that he's still pursuing. So we want to see those play out, but it'll be an orderly transition if there is to be a transition, Chris.
Okay. Cory Bernardi, Stephen Conroy, thank you very much for your time, gents.
Good to talk with you.
Thanks.